Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 8th of December of 2025. Today we have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. Today Zelensky officially rejected the peace proposal that was provided by the United States of America. Zelensky said a very simple phrase. He stated that negotiations have reached a dead end over the territorial issue. There is one question that I and all Ukrainians want to get an answer to. If Russia starts a war again, what will our partners do? The president added. So Zelensky rejected because basically neither Zelensky nor Ukraine received any or more or less reliable security guarantees, first of all from the United States of America and then from the European Union. And this is not everything about Zelensky. Today Zelensky is not in Ukraine. He fled to the territory of the United Kingdom, where Zelensky is going to have a meeting with his European partners. Zelensky arrived in London. He was met by the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, now Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Zaluzhny. And today Zelensky is going to have a meeting. Zelensky is meeting with the heads of the European Union, European Commission, and NATO will take place this evening without the press. So what are they going to talk about? This is a very simple question. They're going to talk about whether the European Union is able to support Ukraine for another year of war. But to support Ukraine, the European Union needs to provide Ukraine a lot of money. But you know that today the European Commission created a very interesting schema to support Ukraine for another 1 or 2 years. European Commission pushes a scheme to spread financial guarantees across European Union states to fund any reparation loans for Ukraine using 185 billion of Russia's frozen assets. That's how much each European Union country would be on the hook for. Germany 51 billion, France 34 billion, Italy 25 billion, Spain 18 billion, Netherlands 13 billion, Poland 10 billion, and so on. So lots of money. So the scheme is very simple. All these countries would be something like guarantees. They will provide their own guarantees to the Belgian banks. They will be able to provide them the Russian frozen assets. And if Ukraine, let's say, wins, and if as a result of this war Ukraine will get reparations, then reparations would be used to cover the losses of Belgian banks. If Ukraine doesn't receive these reparations from the Russian Federation, then the European countries would be forced to pay this money for Ukraine. So the schema is a very simple one. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. But I believe that this schema will work out. There is just one question I have. We see that Germany will be forced to pay up to almost 30% of this bill, but the thing is that we don't see the United Kingdom inside of this list. So, and this is the most interesting part. I understand that the United Kingdom is not a part of the European Union, but obviously the United Kingdom will get lots of money from this 185 billion because there are lots of military factories and on the territory of the United Kingdom that would produce weapons and arms to Ukraine. So we believe that sooner or later, probably much sooner than later, the United Kingdom will also become a part of this list and also will be a part of guarantees, global guarantees to the Belgian banks. So most likely Ukraine will get this money, and first of all, this means that Ukraine will be able to fight for another 1 or even 2 years. The United States of America will receive money from the NATO countries through NATO, and weapons will start moving to Ukraine once again, and lots of weapons. So now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and let's try to understand whether the Ukrainians will be able, based on the configuration of the front line, to stop the Russians in coming 2026, which most likely is going to be the last year of the war. And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of changes exactly from this area. We have already discussed the situation on the western Zaporozhye flank. The Russians, as you can see, improved their position significantly. The Russians finished the battle for the settlement of Stepnogorsk. We waited that the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation would confirm this information today, but they didn't do this. So most likely this is going to happen within the next several days. At the same time, the Russians captured significant number of positions, trenches, trenches, fortifications in the fields. So this is the situation by the end of the 7th of December, and this is the 8th of December. The Russians took under control these territories, and now the fightings and clashes have begun for the dense network of the fortifications that is located to the east and the northeast of the settlement of Stepnogorsk. We're talking about these territories. So this was exactly the main point and the main goal of the Russians at the beginning of the Stepnogorsk offensive. The Russians will try to establish control over these territories, including the settlements of Lukyanovska, Pavlovka, and so on. They will try to take everything until this red line, and from these positions the Russians will have a perfect configuration to continue advancing further in the eastern direction with the purpose to attack the settlement of Orekhov from the back. So as for these operations, for dates and some deadlines, we believe that this situation and this offensive operation, the Orekhov offensive operation from this red line, may start within the next 2 or 3 months. Another important piece of news is coming from the southern part, from the south of the city of Orekhov. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Novodanilovka. The town, the village was captured by the Russians, but as for the end of the 8th of December of 2025, we still haven't received anything that can confirm this. We're talking about videos, of course. We have adjusted the map, but we believe that in coming days, the map might be changed and readjusted back in Ukrainian favor. So here we might see the same story as we used to see in the area of the city of Mala-Takmachka. If you remember, Russians reported that they managed to capture the territory of the settlement several weeks ago, but later pro-Ukrainian sources and neutral mappers provided additional information about the situation on the ground, and they reported that Ukrainians managed to counterattack and to restore control over more than 50% of the settlement and to force the Russians to fall back. So the thing is that maybe Ukrainians even didn't counterattack, maybe the Russians at the beginning didn't control the entire settlement. So as of now, we have adjusted the map, and the entire configuration around the city of Orekhov tell us just about one thing, that the situation is worsening in this area, and it will continue worsening for the armed forces of Ukraine. Now let's talk about the city of Gulay-Polye. The Russians continue their offensive operation in this area. The sources stated that the Russians captured completely the northern, the northeastern, and the eastern parts of the city of Gulay-Polye, which are located on the Russian side of the river of Gaichul. So the battle for the city of Gulay-Polye has 3 stages. The first stage, the Russians either have already completed or about to do this. We are talking about control over the territory of the city of Gulay-Polye on the Russian side of the river. So today it was reported confirmed by several pro-Russian sources. The second stage of the offensive will be the Russian attempt to cross the river of Gaichul and to dig in deeper on the Ukrainian side. This is going to be the most difficult side or part of the operation, but if Russians can cross the river of Gaichul and to take under control Ukrainian positions on the Ukrainian side of the river, this is going to be the beginning of complete collapse of Ukrainian defense, and from this very moment, we can start counting days before the end of the city of Gulay-Polye itself. So the Russians finished the first stage most likely, and the Russians are about to enter the second stage, to cross the river of Gaichul. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. As you can see, the map has been adjusted significantly, especially around the city of Mirnograd. So this is the situation by the end of the 7th of December. Just yesterday, the Russians reported that they managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Rovna. And by the way, today was published this video. Here we can see 2 Russian soldiers that raised the Russian flag and the flag of the Union that was responsible for offensive operation in this area. The Russians raised the flag right exactly in this area, and based on this video, we haven't adjusted anything because we adjusted everything yesterday. But this is the video that confirms Russian control over the territory. Furthermore, the Russians improved their position significantly in the more southern part of the settlement. The Russians basically captured the entire southern citadel, and Russians approached the central citadel. The central central citadel is the Smykrov district, which is located in the central part of the city, and that goes almost till the northern part, almost till the railways. So the Russians approached the central citadel of Mirnograd, and the battle for this territory has begun. This information was provided mainly by pro-Russian sources. We're waiting, of course, for additional updates and additional confirmations. As for the settlement of Rodinska, during the previous 24 hours, we received a video where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians through the settlement. Lots of episodes was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and all these episodes show us the battle on the territory of the city and around. Based on one of the episodes, we have adjusted the map. So the Russians, as you can see, by the end of the 8th of December of 2025, captured almost 80% of the settlement, and the Russians continue offensive. Now let's talk about the Konstantinovka direction, because these days the most important updates are coming exactly from this area. I would like to remind you that just during the previous 5 days the Russians published lots of reports about the situation to the north of the city. The Russians during the previous several days managed to establish control over the settlement of Klinovo. The Russians later captured the settlement of Bezimyanne. The Russians began clashes for the settlement of Veralyubovka. During the previous days the Russians improved their positions there significantly, so we believe that in coming days this entire pocket would be secured by the armored forces of the Russian Federation. Just yesterday we discussed that Russians improved their position significantly in the southeastern part of the city of Konstantinovka, and today we got another report published by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. Today Russians stated that as a result of active and resolute actions, the units of the group of forces south managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Chervone. So these are the changes on the map between the dates. So now it has become clear that the main strike, the main offensive operation, the Russians are planning to launch from the north and from the northeast, basically from the Chasov Yar bridgehead. So it was expected that Russians would attack the city of Konstantinovka from the south and from the southeast, so using these, let's say, roads of attacks for offensive operation. But now, according to, let's say, latest updates, we can make a conclusion that the major and main offensive will start from the north and northeast, and of course they're going to be offensives and attacks from the southern parts of the city of Konstantinovka, but these attacks would be not primary attacks, they would be secondary attacks or something like this. Now let's discuss the situation in the city of Siversk, and we received probably one of the most important updates exactly from this area. So as you can see, the map around the city of Siversk was adjusted significantly. So the screen, the picture that you can see right now in front of your screens is the situation by the end of the 8th of December. If you remember, just yesterday we discussed this video. If you remember, we discussed what the Ukrainian drone was doing in the most western part, almost the most western part of the settlement. Here we can see how Ukrainians attacked the Russian flag on the roof of the school number 1. So this is the school number 1, and this is exactly the point where the Ukrainian drone attacked the building. And if you remember, we discussed, and I asked myself with 2 questions. The first question was whether the Russians managed to capture the entire southern and the eastern parts of the city of Siversk and to get the river of Bakhmutka, or the flag was established by the Russian drone. So these 2 questions, and we discussed that let's wait a bit more to get additional information. And today we received the answer to these 2 questions, and the answer is a very simple one. The Russians managed to capture these territories and to break through Ukrainian defense. So as you can see, we have adjusted the map. This is the school number 1, and this is the changes. These are the changes in front of your screens, and one of the episodes of the video that was published by Ukrainian sources took place exactly in this area through the river of Bakhmutka. So this video was published by the 54th Mechanized Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine, and here we can see lots of FPV drone attacks on Russian soldiers through the city of Siversk, and let's say this episode probably is the most important one. So this episode was geolocated. As you can see, there is a bridge, and there are 2 Russian soldiers that were trying to hide below the bridge, and then Ukrainian drone attacked these 2 Russian soldiers. So the bridge, this point, were geolocated, and this is exactly the place where this episode took place. So as we understand, the Russians during this video or during that particular episode were trying to cross the river of Bakhmutka with the purpose to answer the most western part of the city of Siversk and to capture this territory, to capture the last foothold of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area. But Ukrainians ambushed the Russians. They began bombing them with FPV drones, and Russians were trying to hide below the bridge, but they were ambushed there as well. So this video confirms several things. The first one is Russians right now are trying to cross the river of Bakhmutka with the purpose to finish the battle for the city of Siversk, for its western part. This is the first idea, and the second idea is that most likely even this map that you can see right now in front of your screens has nothing common with the situation on the ground. There are very high chances that the entire central part of the city of Siversk, we're talking about this area, has been already captured by the armored forces of the Russian Federation. We just haven't received anything that can confirm this, but most likely this is the situation, this is the reality on the ground. So we believe that currently Russians control up to 70 or even 80% of the city of Siversk, and Ukrainians control just the territory which is located on the Ukrainian side of the river of Bakhmutka. But due to the fact that the Russians have already made lots of attempts to cross the river with the purpose to dig in deeper on the Ukrainian side, we believe that maybe even the western part of the city of Siversk is also not under complete control of Ukrainian forces. So according to this, we can make a conclusion that 2 weeks is probably is maximum that we can give to Ukrainians for the city of Siversk. In 2 weeks the Russians will capture this area, and the Russians will confirm this, and the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will provide us additional report about this. As for the Liman direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special happened. The Russians are regrouping. The Ukrainians are trying to counterattack, trying to force the Russians to fall back from the east and the southeastern parts of the settlement. As for the Barova direction, the Russians improved their positions in the most probably edge or positions in this area. The Russians captured several true lines and they published a video about this. As for the city of Kupiansk, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special happened. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians are fighting here. Ukrainians introduced additional reinforcements and reserves, and Ukrainians continue their counterattacks with the purpose to force the Russians to fall back, at least from the Ukrainian side of the river Oskol. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.